for. All right. So YouTube's good. Waiting for the Twitch to catch up. The website, not like an actual Twitch. All right, Blake. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Fat Minute. I am your host, BVJ. I am joined tonight with my co-host, Don John.
Good evening.
And we are joined tonight by a very special guest, a close friend of mine, a former colleague. Yeah, true, honestly. A former colleague and probably the biggest Snyder fanboy I know other than myself, John Arujema.
Thanks a lot, BBJ, and thanks a lot, Don, for having me on tonight.
Did you call him Don Ron?
No, I call him Don.
Wrong Don.
I could definitely give you Ron Don or Don John, whatever you want me to call you.
Okay. So tonight we are finally granting a wish that the internet has been begging for weeks now, for months now, for years now. The internet has been begging. If only there were three white boys that could talk about the DC movies of Zack Snyder, three white men who could just share their insight. Well, tonight, pray no more, because your prayers have been answered. Your prayers have been answered. Jesus.
There is a Santa Claus.
Your praise have been answered. Anyway, that would have been a great title, Dottie, if we didn't do the other one.
Oh, there's always tomorrow.
Yeah, true. Well, it fits because of all the Jesus imagery in these movies. So
yeah, no fucking kidding.
The best worst thing ever was to paraphrase Screen Junkies, and once again, I'm repeating someone else's jokes, so don't call me the blasphemer. It was that if you thought Bryan Singer was too on the nose with the Jesus imagery, then Zack Snyder basically nails you in the wrist with it.
Oh, sacrilegious.
Lord forgive me for repeating that. All right, okay, enough. Rumpus time has ended. So we're talking about.
It's the Fat Minute. It's nothing but rumpus time.
So we were talking about the DCEU, the primary DCEU as it once was, or what HBO Max is calling it now, the Zack Snyder trilogy, even though that defeats the entire point of Restore the Snyderverse. But tonight we will be.
It's their subtle way of telling you no.
Yeah. No, money now. So even with my subscription, you're not gonna make a Justice League 2? No, money down.
God.
Okay, so tonight we will be talking about 2013's Man of Steel, and then Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice, specifically the Ultimate Edition, 2016. And then finally, we will be mentioning Justice League and finally the Snyder Cut, which we're doing spoilers for all these movies. The first two are multiple years old. And then as of tonight, the Snyder Cut has been on HBO Max for an entire month. So you had your time to watch it.
Has it seriously been a month already?
It has already been a month since it premiered. Yeah.
Shit,
since we've been blessed, if you will.
Yes. Since we have seen the light.
Papa bless.
So let's start off with Man of Steel, 2013, June 2013. So the first thing I have to say is, Sean, you and I did not know each other yet then, but you can ask Donnie, Michael, Kogel, Trevor, my entire family. I was never more excited for a movie in my entire life leading up to this. Like, it's just, I just couldn't contain it. I was following the development of, a Superman production since, 2006 with Superman Returns. And then by 2009, I had to basically accept that it was eventually going to be a reboot. And then 2010, they announced that Christopher Nolan was going to godfather it and be a producer. And it was like, okay, well, who's going to direct it? And the short list came out, and some of the directors were a weird choice. I know Darren Aronofsky was on it, who did Black Swan and Requiem for a Dream, and
That
it's
would have
like,
that would have been a really weird movie.
yes. And then the other one was Tony Scott, who did he basically did all those like gritty Denzel Washington crime movies in the
That would have
2000s.
been that would have been an interesting movie.
Yes. And then man, I think one of them was Robert Zemeckis, who did the Back to the Future trilogy, Forrest Gump. That would have probably been a very safe movie, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Mhm.
then one of
It
them
basically would have been the modern version of the Donnerverse.
probably, yeah. Which even though they already kind of tried to do that, but one of the names on the list was Zack Snyder, who at the time had only done 300 and Watchmen. And I was like, okay, well, even though he's only done like R-rated movies, this could be very interesting from an aesthetic point of view, from a stylistic point of view. And then he finally got the job, and I shrieked. Like, I love Zack Snyder. I went back and forth a few times over the past several years. But even Mother Teresa had a moment where she doubted her Lord and Savior.
Jeez.
So
man, you need to calm the fuck down.
but I mean, no, I love Zack Snyder. I mean, you were talking to the guy that owns the extended edition of Sucker Punch on Blu-ray. Like, I am a fanboy of this guy. So it finally comes out, Man of Steel, and like the trailers were pretty solid. I mean, the third trailer, the 3-minute trailer that introduces the Hans Zimmer music for the first time, that itself is maybe the best Superman movie ever made. And the TV
that
spots,
slow building brass orchestra.
yeah, and the TV spots were pretty cool. And so we finally see it opening night, and this was this was a pretty good week for us. I think this was an exciting week because this was literally like either, I think this was 2 nights after we saw This Is the End, because they opened the same week. Like, This Is the End opened on Wednesday, and this opened on Friday. But so we got the giggles out of us, and then it finally ends. And honestly, deep down, and I didn't want to admit it, I didn't want to share it, because I didn't want to, I guess, have egg on my face. And because I was the first person they were asking the first question to. Everyone was like, Blake, what did you think of it? And I was like, I thought it was really good and stuff. But deep down, I was a little underwhelmed. I was maybe don't let me lose you yet, Sean. So
Yeah, Agumon.
Consider this the confession booth before I seek my redemption. Anyway,
Fair enough.
but I was a little underwhelmed. It wasn't as bright, and it just wasn't as positive as I wanted it to be. But it was very much a science fiction drama about first contact. It very much tried to present the plot of, more so than other superhero movies, because every superhero movie claims that they do the what if these people were real. But this movie, more than a lot of others, especially the MCU, tried to be like, no, what if one day mankind woke up and there was this Superman that existed? How would the world react to him? How would he be viewed? How would he be covered on the 24/7 news cycle? And it was very much an interesting take in that way. But for me, and one of the things I've never backpedaled on is that I don't like the flashbacks. I would have just much rather seen the life story of Superman in order up front. I would have just wanted to see basically like the superhero equivalent of Forrest Gump, from the time he was a kid growing up, and then, when he does all that great stuff, in the second half. But I think it is a very emotionally ambitious movie, and it tries to show, the emotional toll that being this person would be. And I think it deserves a lot of credit there. A lot of my best comments are in response to what others say. So I want to open the floor up, and then we can maybe boomerang it back to me. Sean, what do you think of Man of Steel?
So I guess thank you, Blake. The thing I want to get across to everybody that's listening right now is I'm not going to ever say that I was the biggest fan of Zack Snyder. I had no idea who the hell this guy was whenever like Man of Steel came out in 2013. I mean, like I knew of Watchmen. I mean, like I didn't know his work because at the time I didn't like see any of those other movies. So I'm not going to even claim myself to be the biggest Zack Snyder fan on this episode right now. But as you've already mentioned, Christopher Nolan's name was attached to this project, and obviously it's coming off of the heels of The Dark Knight Rises, which was arguably one of my favorite trilogies ever made, because my favorite hero is obviously Batman. So anything with Christopher Nolan's name attached to a project, I was immediately in for. So I obviously went to the theaters in June of 2013, and I was blown away by it. I don't know what it was about it. I guess you're kind of right. It told a very emotional story about, the upbringing of Superman and why he is the way he was. And quite frankly, and this is where you and I kind of disagree, Blake, but um, I kind of liked the darker tone they were going for. Or I don't know if that's what they were trying to go for initially whenever they brought Zack Snyder onto the project, but I really, really dug what they did with it, and it seemed to work for me. Maybe I was totally into the whole edge lord Superman. I don't know what it was. Yeah, that's what I'll call him, the edgelord mopey Superman. Everyone was so upset they didn't smile enough. I don't care what it was. I was so totally invested with it, that entire movie, and I typically go back and watch specific clips from that movie just so I can get for some reason just that like emotional rush of like whenever Pa Kent dies or something, or whenever he breaks Zod's neck. It's just like stuff like that. I find myself going back and watching those brief clips because of like the musical elements that are going on in the background, or just it makes me feel something on a deeper level. And truth be told, that's what you want from a movie, in my personal opinion. I want to be able to feel something. And truth be told, I'm just going to be bold and say it. I feel that Man of Steel made me feel something for Superman more than any of the other Superman movies that came before it.
I need
And
my
that is a
daily
bold
dopamine.
statement.
I need my daily dopamine rush. Let's watch Pa Kent die.
Yeah, seriously though. I mean, like, I seriously like I tear up, and there are times where I like cry at that scene because it just really gets to me. It makes me think of like, what if that happened to my dad? He's just like, no, it's stuff like that. It's just like I don't know. I get really emotional whenever I think of stuff in that respect, and I don't know, it really hit home for me. So I'm a big fan of Man of Steel. I've been a big fan of it like ever since it came out, and I'll stand on like that hill, and I'll die on it. I don't care like what the Rotten Tomatoes score says, and that right there is kind of where I started to like question Rotten Tomatoes scores. Like you'll see that's got like a rotten score, and I'm just sitting around thinking, but what was wrong with it? What exactly?
But
like,
why though?
No, seriously though, it's like, but why though? Like, what was wrong with it? And it's just like, oh, then you read the reviews just saying like, oh, it's too dark, it's not happy, blah blah blah. It's just like, okay, fine, they're trying to do something different. They're doing something different from the MCU. Let's let them do that. That's totally fine by me. I'm totally cool with having jokes in one universe and more like, more serious undertones in the other. That's totally fine with me. We don't need to sit there and play copycat. I had no issues with that.
I
So yeah.
no, go ahead, go ahead. I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
no, you're all good, man. That's pretty much my piece on the like what I have to say about Man of Steel. I loved it. I have no problems with it. I'm not going to sit around and ever say to you that any movie that we're discussing on this channel or on this episode right now is a perfect movie. There's always going to be some sort of criticisms that someone can have, unless we're talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League, in which case then that all bets are off. That's the perfect movie. But anyway, but yes, that's all I really had to say about that.
I think it can be said that whatever a lot of people think of this movie from start to finish, this film has a lot of great moments. There are moments
That's something I'm gonna bring up later.
that are powerful. Like it's just the final flashback scene of when Clark Kent says to his mom, "I just wish Dad could have been here to see this," and she says he did see it. He got to see it before anybody else did. And you see Kevin Costner watching his son play with his cape for the first time in the yard. That is a perfect moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there is a good YouTube video that, and first of all, like I'm able to play devil's advocate with this franchise. Like, I'm able to sit down with someone who loves it. I'm able to sit down with someone who hates it, because yes, these films aren't perfect, but I think that they are ambitious and interesting and respectable in their own way. And I will take a interesting and ambitious movie that, isn't perfect, than a movie that just played it safe, didn't take any risks, and just ultimately is just forgettable in the end.
Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and Donnie, like, I know that you prefer Marvel a lot, but even you feel that way with like a movie like Ant-Man. Like, at least with these movies,
Man,
there's
fuck Ant-Man.
at least with these movies, there's a discussion to be had, even if it turns into a debate. After a movie like Ant-Man and the Wasp, what more was there to say? And
To,
I've
to
told you,
quote previous guest Jessica Barnes, I would have rather have washed my hair.
yeah, and I got to tell them the story, Sean, when you came up to me. It was, and not to do a fast forward here, but it was opening weekend of Doctor Strange, and you're like, Blake, did you hear this has a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes? And I go, oh yeah, and you go, there's no fucking way this is 90%, and Batman versus Superman is 27%. Somebody's getting paid off.
I'll die on that hill, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, though, for sure.
But Donnie, I don't want you to think we derailed and forgot about you. What do you think of Man of Steel?
So I went into this movie, um, and like I'll just straight up say it. I didn't really care either way how this movie was going to turn out. I am even less of a Superman fan than I am a DC fan, and I'm not really much of a DC fan at all. They just never really did it for me. I always felt a much stronger connection with the Marvel universe and the characters that they offer than I ever did with any of the DC characters. And Superman was always at the bottom of that list for me. But I went into this movie and I came out and I was pretty like neutral about it. I was like, it was all right. But as time went on, and every time I watch it, I end up liking it a little bit more. Now, at this point, 8 years later, I would honestly say that the first half of this movie, I would trade in all four, five, if you want to count the Donner cut of Superman 2. I would trade in all of the Christopher Reeve movies for just the first half of this movie.
Hmm.
The first half of Man of Steel is probably the best Superman movie ever. Just the Blake, you talked about how there's a lot of good moments in this movie. For better or for worse, this movie is nothing but moments. And I think I know we mentioned a YouTube video. I'm pretty sure I know what YouTube video you're talking about. But this movie doesn't have, in my opinion, like a single scene in it. It's nothing but moments. Everything's just big, epic. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's always that loud in your face orchestra. And if it's not a loud in your face orchestra, it's always like this huge emotional moment where there's this quiet, like kind of slow piano music going on. There's never really a scene where just kind of some sort of world or character building happens. There's never really a moment to sort of stop and smell the roses. The closest thing we have to that is near the end, and I'll get to that in a minute. But like the first half of this movie, from the destruction of Krypton, and the military coup of General Zod, and just Clark, the flashbacks of him growing up, and it's all perfect. And I mean, I love the cast they had here. I mean, Russell Crowe as Jor-El. They made Jor-El an absolute badass in this movie, which is awesome. Like the fact that he actually beats the shit out of General Zod. And then Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent, great. Um, and I mean, Michael Shannon does not get enough credit as General Zod at all. He was like definitely one of the best comic book movie villains in my opinion, at least for the around this time compared to what else was coming out.
Hmm.
Um, but like I said, this is all about the first half of the movie. I mean, that scene when he like gets the costume and he learns how to fly, like that's probably my favorite like scene from any Superman movie ever. Is when Henry Cavill learns how to fly. Um, but I feel like when we get back into talking about how this movie is nothing but moments, when you have a movie that is nothing but moments with all this heavy-handed imagery and themes of base, like this movie really presents Superman as a Christ-like figure. when it's so heavy-handed like that, the entire length of the movie, at a certain point, it becomes less and less sincere. And I can tell you the exact moment, at least for me, where it starts becoming less sincere, and it's the moment when Jonathan Kent dies in the tornado. Like after that, it's just like we've been force fed and spoon fed all of this stuff so far. And it's just like at a certain point, it's just like, who are you trying to convince, me or yourself? And I mentioned there's not really a moment where you stop and sort of, just take a breather and smell the roses and world build a little bit. The closest thing we have to a scene in this movie, it's right after Zod lands on Earth and like Superman fights him and he breaks his helmet and like he's not used to like having the superpowers on Earth and it gives him like sensory overload and he goes back to the ship and like they're like basically coming up with their plan on how to beat Zod and his army. It's just like that's like the closest thing we have to a scene where everything just kind of slows down and the characters actually interact with each other. But it's like it's such a huge whiplash right in the middle of this fucking intergalactic battle basically for Earth. Just to
Mhm.
have that right in the middle like that, it really gives you whiplash. Um, and there's a lot of other like there's nothing really like majorly wrong with this movie, but there's a lot of little things that just really add up. Um, like there's a lot of moments that just require a little too much suspension of disbelief, and I know that's saying something for a comic book movie about space Jesus, but like the one bit where like I don't like that Krypton explodes because they like drain their core for energy. It just feels a little too heavy-handed with the environmental message, I guess, that Zack Snyder was trying to give off. But also, it's just like this civilization is easily at least an entire millennium ahead of us, technology-wise. You're gonna sit there and tell me they couldn't come up with an alternate energy source?
Mhm.
Um, and then
I,
also,
I I totally even forgot that that was what killed Krypton.
yeah, they drain their core. Um, but and then also when Clark finds um, that Kryptonian ship in the Arctic, and they're like, all the ice around it's like 20,000 years old. But he puts a crystal that he was sent to Earth with in it, and it works. I'm like, okay, 20,000-year-old ship working with like a 30-year-old piece of technology. Come on, I can't even get my PS4 to play PS3 games. Fuck off. Um, and then also, I'm sorry, I don't care like what universe this is in. In any civilization where someone like Zod tries to overthrow the government and commits several acts of murder, he would have been fucking executed on the spot, not sent to prison, not sent to like some alternate dimension for like however many cycles they said. He would have been fucking killed on the spot. And it always kind of bugged me that that's like, again, it's a little thing, but there's so many of those little things that just add up. And it's just like, I'm sorry, they would have fucking killed Zod. um, but then
That's fair.
when you look at a lot of the other complaints that people have, like, oh, it's too dark. I wouldn't call it dark. I would call it grounded. It's not bright, colorful, half glass full because we already had that with Christopher Reeve. We don't. If you want that, go watch those movies. And the thing is, the biggest problem with this movie, and probably in a lot of ways, pretty much all the movies we're going to talk about here tonight, the complaint that Superman doesn't act, quote unquote, Superman doesn't act like Superman. The movie's too dark, all this other stuff. It's like, well, that's the fucking point because it's literally his first day. Like
Yeah.
he hasn't become Superman yet. That is the point of this movie. It is literally an origin story in the truest sense. Um, so I'll get into why that becomes a problem with Batman versus Superman when we get to that movie. But for here, it's like people are mad that Superman wasn't perfect on his first fucking day on the job, and
Yeah.
that always fucking bugged me. Um,
Mhm.
but that being said, I think the first half of this movie is great. I think the second half of this movie gets a little sloppy. I think there's just a lot of moments in this movie where I'm just like, what? Like Zod's plan in general makes no sense to me because like in this movie, it's not kryptonite that makes Superman weak. It's Krypton's atmosphere. Like when he goes onto the ship, he's like, you haven't been used to Krypton's atmosphere yet, so it's making you sick, so you're as weak as a human. But it also makes, Zod and all of his cronies like, same level. So his plan is to turn Earth into Krypton, a planet whose atmosphere would make him normal, instead of just being a legit superpowered freak. Like
Mhm.
I never got that. I'm like, dude, you have actual superpowers here. Leave the planet alone. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So
That's a fair point.
Zod's whole plan never really made sense to me in that regard. But
Mhm.
other than that, I mean, like I said, I would trade this movie in for all of the Christopher Reeve movies. I know that's a very unpopular opinion, but I'm sorry. The Christopher Reeve movies are only good, one, in the decade they came out, and two, the ages of 10 and younger. Um, like those, especially three and four. Even three and four are garbage when you're five. But yeah, I would trade this for the Christopher Reeve movies any day. If I had to give it a score on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a solid 8.
All
Like
right.
I was pretty indifferent to this movie, but like as time goes on, it grew on me.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up. Especially seeing how other people reacted. I just want to spend a couple more minutes on this. I don't want to move on just yet, but um, you know, I can be back and forth on this movie, and I am, over the years, I've made a point to admit that it's not perfect, but I think that's kind of just an irrelevant point to make, also, because no movie's perfect. Like,
Exactly.
it's cool that.
Have you ever seen Manos: The Hands of Fate?
I'm sorry. With the exception of Prisoners, no movie is perfect.
True.
The
That's true.
Godfather.
Or that,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. And then we name like 100 movies that actually could be eligible for perfect.
Also,
But anyway,
and if I can, I'm gonna do it anyway. If I can interrupt you for a second.
for
Um,
sure.
One thing I forgot to mention, like your recent like absolute adoration of Zack Snyder is kind of funny to me, because during this time when this movie came out, like the build up to this movie, you were like excited because one, it's Superman, and you did like Zack Snyder. But I remember after this movie came out, conversations with you did not like Zack Snyder short like during the time after this movie, because I remember you talk like absolutely not liking how he interpreted Superman. I remember you saying verbatim, I don't think Zack Snyder just doesn't just not understand Superman. I think he doesn't even like Superman. Um, so there was definitely a period of time where you were not in his fan club at all.
I was off put by his adaptation and interpretation of Superman, and that's something that we could get into later of an adaptation and an interpretation. But um, if he is listening right now, please don't listen to the other guy. I love you.
Zack Snyder has joined the call.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey man, how'd
Um,
you get this number?
Don't
but
fucking move. I'm coming to your house.
um, so one thing is, shit. I lost where I was. Damn it.
Bob was
Um,
listening.
Bob was listening. Um, no, it's just you know, I I think that this movie does get a lot of stuff right, but there's a lot of stuff that it's not that I absolutely hate it. It's just that I just don't know why it's there. Like, I don't like the codex. Like, I
Yeah.
think it's just a very unnecessary thing. When they brought it, they tried to add more lore that didn't need it. And I
Well,
just wish they.
again, it's just how heavy-handed he was with the, Christ allegories,
Well, not just that, but like it's just they tried to make it more complex,
Hmm.
and they were afraid of being accused of keeping up with simplifying superhero movies. Like the whole thing about how he has like the genetic code for future generations in his DNA and stuff. I'm like, just hold up, like slow down, like
I just like
it,
how in this movie's version of Krypton, it's heresy to clap cheeks.
it's but and also like the whole I do like how General Zod has an actual purpose. He has an actual mission. It's not Superman 2 where he just has some vague wish where he's like, I want to rule the world, and then like a day into it he's in the White House bored as hell. Like
Yeah,
he has a legitimate goal here. But like the whole thing
it's just
was
his goal is counterintuitive to what he could be.
yeah, but like the whole thing where they're terraforming Earth to make it like Krypton. Like they could have just they could have just simply made Zod more cold and cruel, and just been like, no, General Zod, just wants to kill off all the Earthlings and just only have Kryptonians on Earth. Like,
Yeah.
that's all they had to do. When they had to do the thing where it's like, they need to change the gravity to make it so that they can be normal like they were on their other planet. Like,
But why would you want that?
yeah, honestly, like, why wouldn't they just want to be like super powered?
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I feel like the descendants of that would be like, yo, man, what the fuck?
And then the other thing where it's like, oh yeah, he needs the blood of Kal-El to have. Yeah, I see what you mean though, Donnie. But anyway, he needs the blood of Kal-El to get the future, offspring and stuff. Like, honestly, there was like probably 100 people on his ship. He could just say that they were going to, create the new civilization. And
Yeah.
if you were to bring up the point where it's like, well, eventually incest would have to occur, well, they are the villains. That just makes them all the more creepy. Like,
Hey,
yeah,
I
but
mean, depending on what you believe, it all started with 2 people anyway, so.
yeah, well, that's the thing though. Yeah, like, so yeah, I like that General Zod had an actual thing he was trying to do rather than just being like, I want to be the king of Earth. And it's like 2 scenes later, he's bored. But I think they made it too convoluted. And then another thing with this movie is that, I felt the need at the time, and there was still a period of time where I didn't feel comfortable yet expressing any disappointment in this movie. But I felt like I needed to defend this movie when I saw how hateful and annoying other people were with it. Like, Green Junkies were absolutely horrid with this movie. Like, and it got to a certain point where if you didn't dig it, you didn't dig it. But then the way other people complained about it is like, okay, I don't know if it was that bad. And I just thought it was
a
amazing.
real bizarre day when I was the one in your corner over a Superman movie.
I just thought it was amazing how, this movie came out a year after the Avengers. So a year after we saw the Battle of New York City, all of a sudden with a Superman movie, everybody became a lawyer for property damage. And they started critiquing like, oh, look at all that damage, look at all that stuff. It's like, it's a movie. Like, what did you watch Independence Day and have a stroke? Like, what is your problem here? And it's like what Donnie said, it's his first day on the job. And a lot of the damage is done by the villains. And like, that's why they're the villains. Like, I didn't understand what people were trying to get at here. It's like, why couldn't Superman save more people? Well, he did. He saved 7 billion people. Like, it's kind of the entire point of the second half of this movie, which I feel the opposite of you, Donnie. Like, you prefer the first half of this movie. I say the second half of this movie goes harder than the second half of any superhero movie dared to do.
I mean,
like,
the fight with the final fight with Zod is pretty fucking hard ass.
Yeah, and him killing Zod. Well, first of all, Christopher Reeve kills General Zod in the original Superman 2, and in this movie,
in a completely silly fucking way, because that's what Superman was back then, was basically a glorified cartoon character.
And he like giggles it off like it's like a giant joke. He pushes him into an icy death.
Yeah,
and it's just like they're just like winking at each other. Where in this one, like, he actually feels remorse. He's like, I just killed the last one of my kind. Like, I'm all alone now. Like, it added more emotional weight. So, yeah, I think this is a movie that is worth discussing, and it has a lot of stuff to its credit, and that's where I'll leave it. So let's move on to the second film.
Another thing I want to add real quick, and I know you're going to hate me for this. That whole shit with the S symbol for the House of L, it's a symbol of hope. Oh, fucking gag me. Like, I hate that. I hate that shit so much. It's so fucking cheesy.
I love it. And honestly, there isn't much more to discuss than that. You hate it. I love it. I don't know. I'm not his lawyer. I don't have to defend it.
I liked it.
I liked it.
You're dumb. That's dumb.
Well, there we go. That's true.
Wow. Ah, shit. Anyway, second film of the night, Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice.
Oh, boy.
Oh, so this was the second movie that I was excited for. I was pumped for this movie. I remember when the first teaser came out, And
Hmm.
it was all right. It was okay. It was the one that was only like, it just played like the slow music, and it was just like a 92 minutes tops. And I was like, okay. And then like the Force Awakens trailer came out the next day, and it's like, okay, well, that got overshadowed real bad. But then I remember that July 2015, the Comic-Con trailer was released. That was like almost 4 minutes long. And it's like, all right, this better really have something to prove. And I know you loved it, Donnie. I know you loved it, Sean.
Hmm.
That long Comic-Con trailer for this was pretty awesome. It hit all the right notes. Like everybody. Oh shit! I mean, how are we going to do this episode in less than 3 hours? But there
Oh,
was a
we
lot
better find a
leading up.
fucking way.
There was a lot leading up to this, because it's just like you had the, well, first of all, the fact that the Man of Steel sequel was going to be a Batman and Superman team up movie. Well, at the time they used the term team up, but I was like,
True.
okay, they're finally making that. That's awesome. They're finally making the world's finest. But then they announced Ben Affleck as Batman, which the first weekend I was guilty of being like, no. But then Michael was like, that's awesome. And I think, Donnie, you were like, okay, let's hear him out. Let's give him a chance.
Yeah, I mean, he was
And
awesome as Daredevil.
I, but um but when we saw the Comic-Con trailer and we saw how Ben Affleck was in it, it's like, I think Ben Affleck might actually be awesome in this.
Yeah.
And then the third trailer came out that December, and it showed Doomsday. And
Yep.
I was like,
Complete
what are you,
180.
I was like, what are you doing? um, so when I first saw this movie, the theatrical cut
I
in theaters,
cried.
obviously, I was like, I was I was very disappointed in it. I mean,
Hmm.
it was the most disappointing movie I'd seen in a while then, just because of how high my hopes were. And I think this goes back to what I had to reconcile within myself with Man of Steel. Is it fair to judge a movie for not being this, you know, shot by shot, picture perfect, immaculate production from start to finish that I had dreamed up in my mind over several years? No, that's not fair. I couldn't judge Man of Steel for not being this perfect Superman movie that I'd been thinking about for at least, 10 years. Same thing with this movie, but there was some stuff where I was like, it made a lot of questionable decisions. I mean, from the very beginning, I thought the casting of Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor was a little. I love you too, Mom. Um, the casting of Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor was a little questionable. I was like, really? And then someone was like, well, like Lex Luthor today would be a little more Mark Zuckerberg. So that's kind of. I think that they were defending it as being an ingenious casting. And then the best one was the flick pick, who was like, you know, when I think of Lex Luthor's backstory and I look at Jesse Eisenberg and I look into his eyes, I'm like, yeah, this kind of is the kind of guy that would kill his own dad. But and I know you're gonna have something to say about Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, Donnie, and I'll leave that to you and I'll respond to it then. But um I think that this is indeed the most, I mean, before Infinity War and Endgame, for having such huge castings, or huge cast, sorry, this was the most ambitious superhero movie ever made. And because of that, it is one of the most interesting superhero movies ever made. And I think that's a fair stance to have. I'm able to sit down with someone who loves it. I'm able to sit down with someone who wishes they liked it more. So, once again, I'll have it boomerang back to me. But Sean, you go ahead.
All right. Well, here's the thing. I don't know. I guess I'm in the minority when it comes to this movie. My initial impressions on the theatrical cut, if we're just talking about that straight out of the gate. So obviously, as you already said, Blake, I was so excited for this movie whenever it was announced, and I for one had no problem with Ben Affleck being cast as Batman. Everyone seems to throw a lot of shit at him for some reason. I don't know why. Everyone I keep hearing like he plays the same character in every fucking movie he's ever been in, blah blah blah, whatever. I had no problem with it. Obviously, I still hold Christian Bale's my favorite Batman, but that's just the way it's going to be. But I was totally cool. I really liked, and obviously, I really love Ben Affleck's Batman. I think he's obviously like he's really close to Christian Bale in my humble opinion. So anyway, back to the movie. It came out in March 2016, and it got fucking panned. I will never forget how much it got panned by every fucking person. Like everyone that we were working with, Blake, was saying how awful the movie was. It was trash, awful, like horrible to watch. Couldn't even watch it. And then like I was so demoralized from that point on. I'm like, man, really? I've been so excited for this. There's no way. Is it really that bad? And then they just went on a tangent about like how terrible it was. So maybe that kind of, ignited my fuel for what I'm about to say. But I remember going with my dad to see it, like, maybe like a week or two. It might have actually been the very opening like week of the movie. I go to see it with my dad. We sit down, watch the movie. It the credits roll, and I'm just like, what the fuck was wrong with this? Like, no, seriously. And then it harkened back to how I felt about Man of Steel. I'm just like, wait a minute, like, what is everybody fucking like, panning these movies for? I had fun
And it
with
was
it.
it was that day that Sean learned that 80% of humanity is actually retarded.
It's like for real though. Like it was like it bothered me so much. Like that is where, and like if you want a moment in time, Blake or Donnie, just so you guys have like a frame of reference. If you want to know where my like actual, I guess, real love for Zack Snyder came from, it was this movie. Like this movie, this like the world building that he was building towards with it, I fucking loved it. And I'm not going to sit here and dare say to you, oh, Batman versus Superman's the best movie ever made. It's not. But the thing, I think my expectations were set so low because I heard nothing but negative things about it for like however many days prior to me seeing it that I went in. I watched that like 2.5 hour movie, and I was just like, okay, you guys are just, I thought you guys were just fucking with me. I really had like my dad said the same thing too because obviously he was following this. He loves DC just as much as I do, and like we were just like, what the hell's wrong with it? And then of course we come back to the whole like the conspiracy theory of this. Everyone just wants to pan it because Marvel versus DC bullshit. I don't know what it is. Like people want to pan DC because of Marvel. Fuck it, I don't care. But that's just how I see the movie. I had no like real problems with the theatrical cut upon the first watch. I thought it was fine. I thought it was great. I was enthralled the whole time. Again, it had a lot of great moments. And if I'm sure we'll talk about it in length at some point, or somebody else will. Are we going to sit here and tell me that people who are watching this movie are going to sit there and tell me that the warehouse scene where Batman beats the shit out of all those thugs wasn't one of the most epic things you've ever seen in a Batman movie? I'll tell you right fucking now, Christopher Nolan's Batman didn't do shit with that. And anybody want to throw anything out there that they disagree with?
Well,
No, no, no.
somebody in the chat says, here's a challenge. Ask Sean what movie / actor he doesn't actually like.
What movie / actor do I not actually like? That's actually, I'd have to think about that. Give me a few minutes. I'll think about that whenever
Who,
whenever I'm
who,
not trying to go on a tangent about why I love BVS.
who asked that, Donnie?
Ricky
I'm
Bro
so
Oh,
interesting.
in the chat.
Well, Ricky, I'll get back to you on that. Like, give me a few minutes to like contemplate that while I continue to go on my rampage about why BVS
yep.
should not be as hated as it is.
I'm gonna press pause there, Sean. No,
Go
people
ahead.
can say whatever. Well, people can gripe about the rest of this movie, but anyone who can say that the warehouse scene isn't awesome, they're just full of shit. So go ahead.
No, that's my whole thing too. I thought Zack Snyder's take on Batman was pretty fucking badass as well. Again, I feared Batman in that movie, like, and that's kind
Old
of what the
Testament
point of
Batman.
Batman is. What was that, Donnie?
Old Testament Batman.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's again going back to the political or the biblical allegories. It's just like no, for real though. Like I felt it was true to what like the Dark Knight Returns was, like the comic by Matt, whatever the fucking Miller guy
Frank
is. What's
Miller.
his name? Is
Frank Miller.
Mac Miller?
He
Mac
was,
Miller?
he was, he was,
Lil
he was
Mac!
no. Ben Affleck's Batman in this movie is very much an ode
Frank
to
Miller.
the unapologetic action heroes of the 1980s.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. Like people were getting gripes about that, about like how it's just like so many things, just like gripe after gripe. I think that's again That's where my whole rampage with this comes from, is that it was just panned for so much, and I don't feel like it was necessary. And then like, Marvel can like shit on screen, and then like everyone's just like, it's the best movie ever made. But then what continued to ignite my Zack Snyder DC fuel was whenever obviously Civil War came out. What, like a few months later, and then it like got universal claim, but like it was fantastic. And here I am sitting there being like, it was the same fucking movie.
All right, look,
Did
you can you
anybody?
could you could say whatever you want about Jesus Christ, but don't you dare talk shit about Captain America: Civil War.
I liked that movie. I went and saw that one too. But the thing was, I also liked BVS, but everyone was saying BVS was shit and Civil War was fantastic. Like they'd never seen anything quite like it. Whenever BVS came out several months before,
Yeah.
that's my thing with it. I mean, Blake, you and I have had this conversation before. I don't know how you actually stand on it right now, but that's just, again, I feel like a whole lot of my fuel and what my passion is towards, like, Zack Snyder and the DCEU comes from so much hatred, and I'm not able to understand what exactly is the problem with it. I don't
Yeah.
know. And if I'm moving on next to the tangent of, like, the Ultimate Edition, I watched that. I went and bought that Blu-ray the day it came out. I sat down, watched it with my family, and then I sat there with my dad, and he's just like, I thought it was good again. It just made it better. And that's kind of what it was. I didn't have a problem with the theatrical cut, and people can, like, gripe about it, fine. I thought the Ultimate Edition made it, some of the, I can recognize, hear me out. I can recognize that there are some things that were like definitely questionable when it came to that movie, like some plot holes that were just like, well, why did that happen? And that was rectified when it came to the Ultimate Edition,
Hmm.
and I was totally fine with that. But for some reason, I guess it didn't register the first time around when I watched it. But after watching the Ultimate Cut, I was fine with it. Like I
Hmm.
didn't really have any actual gripes to where I'm like, I wish this or this or this or this. I felt fulfilled with that movie, and that is why it honestly, again, this movie ranks pretty high when it comes to my favorite, superhero movies or comic book movies as a whole. Anybody else want to take the reins now?
Donnie, you go ahead.
Well, first off, to have this movie ignite your love of Zack Snyder and to rank it as high as you did, it's a bold move, Cotton. Um,
Yeah.
but that being said, this movie is another case, like Man of Steel, of people not getting the fucking point in a lot of instances. So to bring it back to Man of Steel a little bit, talk about how Superman isn't quite Superman in that movie because it's literally his first fucking day. He hasn't become Superman yet. I remember when we saw that Comic Con trailer, I was like, yes, this movie validates him not quite being Superman yet in that first movie because, you know, Bruce Wayne and Batman's like hatred of Superman is fueled by, how badly he did fuck up that first day and how many people he didn't manage to save that first day. So I'm like, that's perfect. Problem is, throughout this movie, Superman still acts like it's a fucking chore to be Superman half the time. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
fucking moping in the bathtub. He's moping all over the fucking place. It's like, dude, you're fucking Superman. You are damn near omnipotent, and you get to go home to Amy Adams every night. Suck it up, boy. Um, and then also people talking about a lot of I saw and heard a lot of gripes about how Batman is portrayed in this movie, about how vicious and brutal he is, and the fact that he even kills sometimes. I'm like, that's the fucking point because he's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be an older, bitter, disillusioned Batman. That's the fucking point of this Batman.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of this movie is still people just not getting the goddamn point. Um, and that's on just mainstream audiences having the attention span of hamsters these days, unfortunately. Um, but that being said, I remember when that Comic Con trailer dropped, like you, me, and Trevor, and all of us, we were like, "Fuck yes!" And I remember when that trailer with Doomsday dropped. You and me were at Trevor's apartment for the weekend, and we were like, "Oh, they dropped a new trailer for it." We watched it, and and Doomsday came up on the screen. And I remember it was silent for a couple seconds where we all just kind of looked at each other and we were, I'm pretty sure we were all thinking, all right, who wants to say it first? It being, this movie doesn't look good anymore. Like, and it wasn't, I don't know, it's so hard to like put into words, but just something about that shot of Doomsday just for some reason told us that all of our hopes about this movie had just been dashed. Like they just did a complete 180 on us. And you and I were talking about it the other day about how, I mean, Doomsday's only purpose is to be an attraction. And the second you announce him as being part of the movie, everybody immediately fucking knows what's going to happen, which is a problem in and of itself. And then it's also a
His
problem.
very existence is a spoiler.
Yeah, it's like Star Trek Into Darkness with fucking Benedict Cumberbatch being Khan. It's like we all know what's going to happen now. And then it's like it's also a problem because it's like this is literally the second movie of your cinematic universe and you're going to kill off your fucking mascot. And then it's also another problem on top of that because it's like we know you're going to kill him and we also know you're going to bring him fucking back. So it's just it's spoiler on multiple levels, and it's also just blowing your load too fucking soon. Like if you want to do something like something like that should be saved for a bit later on when when you need to bring out something that hasn't quite been done yet. And then also it's just like I love Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor in this movie, like because he wasn't just trying to be like Gene Hackman. He was very much his own portrayal of Lex Luthor, and it was very like when he talked, you fucking listened. And I love how he was very much like he is very much a mad genius, like in the truest sense. Like you could tell this motherfucker's got an IQ of 1,000, but he's also off his fucking rocker. And I loved it. And but the problem was like I feel like this movie would have been a lot cleaner if Lex Luthor had been like the guy they fight at the end of the movie. Like put him in like the mech suit from the 90s or something. Sure, it might have looked a little silly, but it would have been a lot cleaner and it would have been a lot more interesting and it wouldn't have been as much of a spoiler as, having Doomsday in there. Also, Doomsday doesn't make sense to me the way he's made. He Lex Luthor throws some of his blood in that goop with Zod's body and it makes that okay. Sure, why not, I guess. And also with this movie, it just throws us into this world. Like, Batman's been around for 20 years and all these other metahumans have been hiding out and everything. It's just like it throws too much at us too soon. Like there's not enough buildup. We're just expected to just jump in head first into this pool and just accept it. I mean, I don't think this movie is as bad as what everybody portrayed it to be when it first came out. I think it's an all right movie, but the fact that the first time Superman and Batman appear together on the big screen is only an okay movie. When you have almost a century of continuity to pick and choose from, that's a fucking problem. So it's an okay movie, but the fact that it's only okay is a problem in and of itself.
Fair point.
It's a lot to digest there. I mean, I was kind of back and forth on him, but I do actually like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I think I don't know. I respect that they actually did something different with Lex Luthor. But in another way, like, have you seen what young Lex Luthor looks like in the comics? He looks exactly the way Jesse Eisenberg does in this movie.
Yeah.
Has long red hair. It's like he looks like him. And, I mean, that scene, and it's the only time they interact with each other, which I guess that can be a critique in and of itself, is that there's only, in this cinematic universe, or I guess trilogy, there's only one time when Superman and Lex Luthor actually interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
But that one time they do is really good.
Yeah, like
When
if you
If
you don't go fight Batman, your lady's in for a lot of trouble. How? She's on the ground. Oh no, we all know every man's real true love is his mother.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Like that was. I mean, here's the thing.
And it's like, where is she? I don't know. I wouldn't let them tell me.
Like
he's literally he is a mad genius in the purest sense of the phrase.
Yeah. And the whole, if God is all powerful, he cannot be all good.
Yes.
And if he is all good, he cannot be all powerful. Like, I mean, he was dropping some heavy shit.
Yeah.
And And
He
no,
wasn't just blowing up half the country for real estate. Like
no,
Yeah.
he wasn't trying to turn California into his own theme park or whatever. Like, no,
yeah,
this movie actually made Lex Luthor evil. Like,
yeah,
this wasn't about a real estate scheme. That was, you need to go kill Batman or I'm gonna burn your mom alive. It's like, holy shit.
yeah,
And because of that, like, first of all, Batman during this whole movie is a response to the fact that he blames himself that Robin was murdered,
Yeah.
and he loses his way, he loses himself. And also, like, Batman himself is mentally unstable. So
yeah.
when you get him to empathize with you, when when you go to him and be like, and people misunderstand the Martha scene so much. It's like, oh,
Thank God.
they become best friends because their moms have the same name. It's like, no, in that moment,
He
that
realizes Clark is just as human as I am.
Yes.
exactly, yes, he
Yes.
sees that he is human like him, and also he's like, I became this way because my mom was taken away from me, and
hmm
now I'm going to be responsible for somebody else's mom being taken away from their son. Like, Batman saw in that moment that he had become a villain and he needed to become the hero again.
I will
And
say though
Yes.
that the final chunk when Batman and Superman actually do fight, because I remember leading up to this movie, I'm like, I'm gonna be so disappointed if that fight's only like a couple minutes long. And that's what happened. It was only a couple minutes long, and it was, for the most part, in my opinion, kind of a slow drag.
see, I feel like
Uh,
that was a lose-lose because a lot of people are
yep.
saying it's over before you know it, but like, if they had made it longer, people would have just complained that it was too long. Like,
Amen.
they did that with the General Zod fight in Man of Steel when, like, the General Zod fight isn't even that long. And but I mean, as far as talking about what this movie actually does, right? Back to, like, Batman being mentally unstable, like, he realizes that Clark was just as human as he was. He realizes that he didn't want to be responsible for somebody else losing his mom. And also, like, I know it's become a meme. I know you never hear it said in a serious way, like people say it in a funny way. Like, Batman was triggered in this
Yeah,
scene.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you have to help me. They're going to kill my mom. Well, then he just no, the next scene is Batman performing When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong. Like, he loses his shit. He's like, wait, hold up. You're saying somebody's mom is going to be killed? And then he just goes fucking ape shit on these guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
And I think that's how they should have done the flashback. Because I think what Zack Snyder was going for, the whole time when Batman is fighting off all those guys in the warehouse, he is imagining himself saving his own mom. Like, that's what's
Mm.
happening. And I think it would have been better if during the punches between him and all of Lex Luthor's goons, if then it showed the flashback of his mom being murdered. And then I think it could have been cool if, like, and maybe this is getting a little too fanboy fan fiction, I think when Batman, saves Martha Kent from the explosion and he looks up and he sees her there, for a split second, he should have imagined his own mom. Like, it should have had the actress who played his mom there for a moment, and he kind of has to blink real hard, real quick, and it's her. Like, I feel like that could have played out better for people and they would have understood it more. But I think the way it is, what they do, I think it's awesome. Again, I can't praise that scene enough. That is the best Batman action sequence in any
Yep.
Batman movie. Like, that scene fucks so hard.
Yep.
Um,
I do have one
and
problem with how Batman is portrayed in this movie, and we talked about it, like when he brands people. And I don't have a problem with the fact that he does brand people. My problem is, like, in that scene early in the movie when he brands that one guy, and then later on they show him being transferred to another prison, and he's like, "No, do you know what they do to people who've been branded by the bat? They fucking kill them." And it's never explained why that's a thing. And that may be something small, but it bugged me through the whole movie. I was like, why do prisoners kill other prisoners that are branded? Like, it's never explained, and it's never like brought up again. It's just, why is that a thing? Especially because it's like, it's also kind of like heavily implied that not only do the guards know about and encourage it, but Batman knows about it and encourages it too, that this is a thing. And it's just like, you're gonna have all this heavy implication behind it, but not really like explain it. It just really bugged me through the rest of the movie.
it was somewhere between, it is known as the mark of shame,
Yeah.
but then also that Lex Luthor pays those people to kill them.
Which also bothered me too, because it's like, if you're just gonna have Lex Luthor pay to kill that guy anyway, why bother with the whole branding gets you killed business?
Well, because that's his way of framing Batman and making Superman hate him more. The whole time, Lex Luthor is trying to pull strings and get Batman to hate Superman and Superman to hate Batman.
But his whole,
Yeah.
but he was gonna get Superman to fight Batman anyway by kidnapping his mom.
I
Like I said, I could sit here and say this movie is not perfect.
I'm just, all I can say is this doesn't have to be an argument. All I can say is, Donnie, it may not work for you, but it works for me. That's all I can leave it at. It simply works for me. I accept it, especially that part. But
I'm not
I
saying
mean,
it ruined the whole movie for me. I'm just saying it was just like a little thing that just irked me the longer I thought about it.
it did show the progression of Superman understanding that he would eventually have to fight Batman, because that whole thing that, when the wife of the criminal, the convict, is talking to him, Clark Kent, and saying, words don't stop a man like that, it stops him, a fist. Like, you need to see more of Superman being like, okay, I actually do have to fight him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Ultimate Edition is better for people who have a more open mind. And if you already like this movie, you're going to like it more.
Yep.
But if you didn't like the Doomsday was in the movie to begin with, I got some bad news for you, because he's still in the movie. Like, that's what the Ultimate Edition misses. But it does make more sense. It shows Superman, trying to help the medics after the Capitol explosion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I look at little moments like that. I'm like, why did you cut that out? And then especially how, like, he couldn't see the bomb in the wheelchair because it was lead lined. Why would you cut that out?
Which, that was weird to me, because it's like, I know we understand that, Superman can't see through lead, and it's like, was that established in anywhere earlier in this movie or in Man of Steel that he can't see through lead?
I don't think so, but I guess they were just counting on
People just knowing.
fans and casual audiences knowing. Yeah, I guess they were just counting on that being such common knowledge.
Yeah.
And
of course, this is the movie that started that trend of every time Wonder Woman, even a picture of her is shown, you hear a full fucking rock orchestra.
yeah.
Yeah.
One, and again, like, I am able to meet in the middle with you, Sean, on how, like, this is a more emotionally, distressed Superman, and how Batman has lost his way. One critique that I did bring up before is, like, it felt like in this movie they were getting both of them mixed up. There's a specific moment with Superman that felt like it should have been a Batman moment, and a specific moment with Batman that felt like it should have been a Superman moment. It almost felt like they got their Jesus. They got their dialogue crossed, because there's a scene where Lois Lane's going to her taxi cab and Superman's right there, and he's like, Lois, I have to go fight him, or he has to die. And it's just like, Superman's accepting that he has to, like, commit murder to save his mom. But Superman has this line where right before he flies away, he looks as sad as he can be, and he goes, and I'm not mocking, and I'm not mocking Henry Cavill's acting or whatever, but he looks so sad, and he goes, nobody stays good in this world. I'm like, that's a Batman line, or it should be a Batman line. And then at Clark Kent's funeral, which they nailed Superman's funeral in this movie. Like, you can say it happened too soon, but they nailed it. Like, especially when they gave him the funeral of a soldier, and they had the silver S shield on his coffin, and they did, like, the flag with it. Like, nailed it. But when Bruce Wayne is at his funeral and he goes, men are still good. We fight, we lie, we betray one another, but we can do better. We have to. I'm like, that should be a Superman line. Like, it's just so weird how they got him mixed up like that. But I do love a lot of the callbacks in this movie and a lot of the parallels. And, like, I mean, Zack Snyder, he was definitely, you can say, Donnie, that he gets a little loud with his symbolism, but I like a lot of the subtle stuff. Like, I love the Day of the Dead scene, because it's a callback to when in Man of Steel he's drowning in skulls, and then at Day of the Dead he's being lifted up by skulls and skeletons, and he's in one movie he is drowning in the guilt of a civilization that wouldn't accept him, and then in the other one he's being lifted up by a society that wants to celebrate him. I thought that was a very cool callback. Or how the shot of in Man of Steel, all all the soldiers holding the guns to him is almost a parallel to in Batman versus Superman. He's landing with the media holding their cameras at him. Like, it's just a lot of cool stuff, I thought.
You talk about like moments where it felt like they got like their personalities and dialogue switched. Do you ever read the Elseworld comic where Superman landed in Gotham and he was raised by the Waynes and he
No, I
became
didn't.
and he became Batman?
Nope.
You should read it sometime. It's pretty good.
I'll check that out. But
Hey,
yeah,
can we talk about Batman's costume in this movie?
I don't
What's
want to
wrong with
argue. I don't want to argue, but go ahead.
Like, I normally don't have strong opinions about Batman's costume in general because it's a pretty simple, basic, monochromatic costume. There's not a lot of room for creativity with it anyway. I'm just kind of like, yep, that's Batman most of the time. But like, I don't like the Dark Knight Returns bat suit at all, comic form or in this movie. I don't like any Batman suit where his ears are nubs. It just doesn't look right to me. But
I can agree with that. I
I
can get behind that.
I also don't like the Dark Knight Returns bat symbol. It looks like a fucking Count Chocula marshmallow.
I love the Dark Knight Returns outfit and symbol, and I think that Batman versus Superman has the best bat suit. I mean, that's just my opinion. And once again, it's just simply as Donnie, it just doesn't do it for you, but it does it for me. But any final thoughts we want to get out before we move on to the Justice League?
Ricky, to answer your question, I don't like Tom Cruise. Yeah, just figure I should put that out there. Sorry, Tom Cruise, if you're listening.
Tom Cruise has now joined the call.
Yep, I'm gonna get murdered in a few minutes, but all right.
And he's gonna have the Church of Scientology cover it up.
Yeah, there's that too.
Before we move on, I will say that this is a movie where every time I watch it, I like it more. And I think that this deserves to be a reconsidered movie. And once again, it was one of the most ambitious superhero movies, and it's still one of the most interesting superhero movies. I'd rather watch a movie like this where there's still something to talk about than other movies where there's nothing to say. So moving on.
I was going to say, Blake, you hit the nail on the head because here we are talking about this stuff now, and I'm not sitting here thinking about, Age of Ultron. So,
oh, you can fuck off right now.
Yeah,
you're never getting invited back to this show ever again.
Well, I'm about to go with him because Sean, if you didn't pick up, Donnie is literally the only person in the world that thinks Age of Ultron is better than the Avengers 1.
It fucking is.
I just, you are allowed to think that. That is your right. That is okay. I don't.
Don't fucking patronize me.
I don't think less of you for believing that. I just need you to understand. Literally, no one else thinks that.
Well, yeah. Well, remember what I said earlier about 80% of civilization being actually retarded?
Yes.
Well, there you go.
Anyway.
Point is, we're talking about, the Snyderverse. I feel like I have more discussions about that than I do when it comes to things like that. That's my last thing on it.
Okay. So, Zack Snyder's Justice League, also known as the Snyder Cut.
Oh, we're not talking about the theatrical one either?
No, I was about to go into that.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'm just saying we have reached that chapter in the episode.
Okay.
So let's go ahead. Actually, yes, let's do this in order. What do we think of the Justice League, the 2017 movie? I will say that, Sean, you and I saw this on Wednesday night at midnight.
Yep.
Yeah, we saw it the night before the public premiere. And you and I were very content. We were like, okay,
yeah, I agree.
We enjoyed it for what it was. We were entertained. We sat down. We had an enjoyable and entertaining 2 hours. What more could we ask for?
Yeah.
And I do. There's a Slash Film article that says the 2017, and this is before the Snyder Cut was even announced, but it said, 2017's Justice League is actually an enjoyable comic book movie. We're just too spoiled to enjoy it. And I think that's fair. I mean, we have entered, and I know that, Donnie, you and I go back and forth about someone like this. We have entered a moment in time where we have so many people that think a movie is either the best ever or the worst ever.
Yep.
And nothing is allowed to just ever be somewhere in between. I remember when, we had friends that couldn't accept that I just thought Jurassic World was okay. It's like, I can't believe you didn't like it, Blake. I go, I never said I didn't like it. I just said it was okay. Like, you don't have to either love or hate a movie. And I think that that's where I do still feel with this. I know in hindsight, I'm supposed to condemn this movie because, you know, I am a Zack Snyder fan and I do love, spoiler alert for this episode, I do love the Snyder Cut, but I never hated this movie. I never even disliked it. I just knew that it had more to offer. It left more to be desired. So Sean, what your thoughts on the Justice League?
So obviously, Blake, you pretty much hit the nail on the head again with the discussion about how we saw it the night before it was released to the public. And yeah, you're right. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, I hate it from the moment I saw it. I can't say that. I definitely did enjoy it the first time. And I'm sure if my girlfriend's listening right now, she'd be like, oh no, 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 you definitely liked it originally. I remember that. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. I did. I'm not gonna ever say I didn't. So we sat through it, we watched it. I'm like, you know what? I like it. But then, and I guess it's kind of bad on me for letting public opinions get into my head again. It like I kept hearing more and more about how this wasn't necessarily Zach's vision, and they kind of brought my opinion of the movie down, like from that moment on. And from that moment onward, I was unable to accept Justice League as the definitive cut of this movie that I've been hearing and building towards for so much time. So I guess I get like to put simply, I liked it opening night, and then every single day after that, as Donnie continued to say, like you continued to watch, other movies, and he liked it more. I liked this one less, and that's where I'll leave it on that.
Donnie?
So I finally watched this movie for the first time like a week or two ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I thought it was okay, I was expecting to hate this movie just because of how I've heard Blake and Trevor talk about it all these years. Um, but I watched, I was like, it was okay. I feel like you can pinpoint the exact moment where Zack Snyder left it, and I feel like the second, like that scene when Bruce recruits the Flash, and they get in the car and everything, and it's like, that line, oh, what's your superpower? I'm rich. That from that moment on, it is no longer a Zack Snyder movie. It is all Joss Whedon. So I mean, you could just, it's so blatant from that point on, that was when Warner Brothers took the tragedy of Zack Snyder's family issues they took that as an opportunity to rebrand. And I mean, it's so blatantly obvious. Like it's super bright and colorful, and the humor is like way lighter, and there's a very curt and strict 2 hour runtime. Like it's so
Mm-hmm.
blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
Um,
Zack
like
Snyder, unless it's 300, Zack Snyder cannot do a comic book movie in 2 hours.
yeah, and and there's moments where the characters are acting so out of character. Like that scene right after Superman is revived and he like beats the fuck out of all of the Justice League, and like
Oh God. Oh God.
and
Kal-El, no.
yeah, God, no.
You make her sound like the caterpillar from A Bug's Life.
Oh yeah. Oh, Kal-El, yeah.
Kal-El, no.
But
Why did they reshoot
after
that?
after he flies off and like Batman's laying on the ground, it's like, oh, yeah, something's definitely bleeding. I'm like, that's literally like him. That Batman's trying to act like Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, and it fucking bugged me.
Yeah,
That that that,
just
that
to pause, Donnie, you can't get mad at Ben Affleck and Batman versus Superman for being like, that's not how Batman should be, and then be fine with that.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
that scene when they're all arguing with each other about like whether or not to bring Superman back, and they're all having that, and like they're getting in each other's faces. That scene is like a copy paste from the first Avengers movie when they're arguing on the
Yep.
helicarrier.
Amen.
Yep.
Amen.
Like that second, like the second that scene when Bruce recruits the Flash ends, so does Zack Snyder's like influence on this movie. Um, But overall, it's an okay movie. It's not awful. It's not bad. It's all right. Um, I they fucking made the whole S symbol being a symbol of hope even dumber in the first fucking scene of the movie, though. when with that recording of Superman, it's like, oh well, it looks like an S. Well, it's supposed to because it's like a winding river. It comes and goes. Kal-El, shut the fuck up. Kal-El,
Don't forget the
no.
mustache.
But no, Donnie, you need to understand how much Sean and I have been roasting that moment. Just like you can't get mad at Zack Snyder for making The Dark Knight darker and then have nothing to say at, oh yeah, something's definitely bleeding.
But then there's just like a lot of other like little like the fact that the first Justice League movie ever, is a thing, and Lex Luthor, like you and I have talked about, like how we hate that everybody thinks Lex Luthor is Superman's only villain.
Yeah.
But that being said, the first Justice League movie ever and Lex Luthor's only appearance is in the post-credits scene to set up a sequel really fucking bugs me for some reason. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I also don't like the mother boxes in this movie because, like, it doesn't have to be a one-for-one recreation of the comic books, but the mother boxes do not act this way in the comics. I mean, they are sentient computers and they can manipulate matter and stuff like that, but there's no thing of like, oh, there's three of them, only three, and if you combine them, they create this unity that wipes out all life on a planet. That's not a thing in the comics. Like they are actually very common in the comics, and they're basically like PDAs for the people of the planet Apocalypse. They just use them just very leisurely.
Mm-hmm.
So by doing that, ironically, they made them more like the Infinity Stones, and it just really bugged me. And Steppenwolf being the villain just doesn't work. I mean, like for the first Justice League movie, you need a villain that is very iconic. So it's like you either need to go all out and have Darkseid involved, or what I would have done, since they were setting up they were setting up Lex Luthor during doing research on the mother boxes with the previous movie, and like they were like Bruce Wayne's like, oh, I got all of his notes here talking about these things. They should have had Lex Luthor steal a mother box and use that to make Brainiac, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I mean,
Or
go ahead.
or the Legion of Doom.
Yeah, like that was another thing we talked about. Like it would have been very different to have a team of superheroes fight a team of supervillains.
Yeah.
Um, I
Because
mean,
because every time we see a superhero team before, they're usually just fighting one guy or a faceless horde.
yeah. So it's like it's not a bad movie, but it's a very messy movie, and it's even more disappointing in that sense than like I mentioned before with Batman versus Superman. Well, this is the first time these two characters are on screen together, and that's the best you got. Well, this is the first time the Justice League are in a movie together, and that's the best you got. Like it's
Yeah.
even it's that to an even greater extreme, and as far as the
Right.
theatrical cut is concerned.
Right.
Um, but it's not a bad movie. It's an okay movie. I mean, if you need to kill 2 hours, sure. But I mean, it does go without saying that the Zack Snyder's cut, and I'll get more into it later. The Zack Snyder cut is far superior.
I see a glimmer of hope in that comment. It
Yeah.
winds like a river. Oh,
Kal-El, shut the
Kal-El,
fuck up.
no.
Superman, have you ever fought a hippopotamus?
I fucking,
Oh my God.
I fucking like that when he's fighting the Justice League after he's revived, and like he gives he gives the Flash the fucking evil side eye in slow motion. That shit fucking
Yeah.
that's the scene I roast.
See, I actually, and they keep it because I guess that confirms it was a Snyder moment. I actually love that. Like the Flash was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get one up on him," and
He's like, oh, fuck
Superman
that.
look sideways, and the Flash is like pissing his pants. It's like,
He's
oh,
he was
wow,
he was
fucked
he was
up.
looking at the Flash the same way Margot Kidder looked at Henry Cavill in Superman 2.
God, you will never get over that.
No, I won't because it's funny.
Kal-El, no.
No.
That should just be a meme now.
Okay. I'm sorry. Oh, um, moving on to Zack Snyder's Justice League, and since you all were mentioning it, When my wife and I watched this, we watched it on the projector upstairs. It was because I was like, I need to see this on a bigger screen than just our TV. And my wife has this thing where, and I've adopted it as well. And I think Trevor does this too. Watch everything with subtitles, because sometimes it's just like somebody will whisper or they'll have like an accent or a voice where it's just like, wait, what did they say again? So they
Put the
just
needle back.
they have subtitles on at all times, which, okay, awesome. But throughout this movie, when, like, I guess, just not to flash forward too much, but towards the end when they're getting ready for the big fight, the big epic battle, they're doing the down, 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 down. The subtitle just says dramatic rock music starts
Yeah.
playing. Just, I love that. Just dramatic rock music. Okay. Um, so Sean, you and I were on this journey for years.
Oh yes.
Hashtag release the Snyder Cut.
Yep.
All memes aside, all fanboy jokes aside, and Donnie, I know you've been rolling your eyes at me the whole night. At, you know, I questioned Zack Snyder, and then I liked him again, and now I like him, you know, more than ever.
That's
I
not why I've been rolling
appreciate
my
it.
eyes at you.
I love you. I appreciate him more than ever. You know, I've loved him since Watchmen came out in theaters. And yes, I questions like, you know, is Superman a character for Zack Snyder? You know, Zack Snyder would probably do great with RoboCop, Judge Dredd, um, any of those kinds of characters. But I think what people need to accept about this franchise, this adaptation, is that it is very much an artistic interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
And this may sound overly obvious, but we're watching Zack Snyder's DC. We're watching Zack Snyder's Superman. You know, it's just, this is why other directors exist. And I know, Donnie, you've had this critique. You've even expressed this critique with Marvel and their directors. You know, it's like, well, if you want all your movies to look the same, then just have them be directed by the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, how overbearing they can be and how they don't allow enough director expression and vision. And that's what I like here, is that, you know, no, this may not be the exact Superman that I would, you know, I would direct or I dreamed of in my childhood, but I am witnessing an artist get to express their own take on it. Once again, that is the entire point of there being different directors. You have to be open to that. Batman versus Superman is an excellent movie when viewed as an Elseworlds tale. It's just when, you know, people feel the need to get into the debate of, are these the definitive performances and portrayals of these characters? That's when the debate starts. But, and above all else, like, what Warner Brothers did to Zack Snyder, I'm sorry, you don't have to be that big of a fan of him. What they did was really shitty.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if they had decided to part ways after, you know, Disney, you know, paid off Rotten Tomatoes to give Batman versus Superman a bad score.
Yeah.
No, all jokes aside though, sorry, all jokes aside. If they had decided to part ways after the mixed reception of Batman versus Superman, it would have been a bummer for some of us, but so be it. Don't let the man film shit for a whole year and then force him out after his daughter just committed suicide. Like, I'm sorry, that's super shitty.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
shame on them for doing that. But
I do remember though when they announced that Joss Whedon was coming in to finish up the movie, you you died and were revived by a joke I made where I said, you know, it's bad when the Justice League is calling the Avengers for help.
yeah, I love
true.
that. That was almost a wholesome joke. But yeah, no, it's just, you know, rest in peace to Autumn Snyder, to Zack Snyder and Deborah. Sorry for your loss. But yeah, no, just a terrible mismanagement. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but so after years of fans rallying and donating to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, you know, they finally announced that HBO Max would indeed hashtag release the Snyder Cut. I remember Sean and I were texting back and forth that day, and Sean was like, Blake, it's happening. It's real.
Yeah.
And I go, Sean, you kept your faith.
Yeah.
It's, as Joe Biden said, keep the faith. But
I'm still holding
Oh,
faith.
Kal-El, shut the fuck up.
okay.
Kal-El.
Kal-El, no. It's almost like she almost said it like Mrs. Doubtfire.
Hello.
Yeah, so it finally comes out. And, you know, in the Justice, I didn't get to say it earlier, in the Justice cut, I loved Ezra Miller as the Flash. I liked him as the comic relief. I thought he worked really well. And, you know, it was interesting to see exactly, because I know, Donnie, you said you can tell what moment Snyder leaves and what moment Joss Whedon comes in, but there were some moments where I felt was a gray area. Hashtag justice is gray.
Boo.
But it was like for me personally, I did not mind the moment where the Flash says, "I've never done battle before. I just push some people and run away." I know Sean doesn't like it, but I was fine with it. The one thing that apparently was a Snyder moment, but he chose to cut it because I guess Warner Brothers, made him make it and was like, more jokes, was when Aquaman first meets up with the Justice League and is like, huh, dressed like a bat. I dig it. Honestly, looking back, that scene, that line doesn't make any sense because it's like, well, his name's Batman. No shit. Like, what are you talking about? But, and then, this is indeed a vast improvement. It is the superior film. And I know one of the main controversies is its runtime. It's 4 hours long.
You don't feel it.
No.
I agree. I 100% agree.
Or as Screen Junkie's Honest trailer said, it is the length of 1.5 Casablancas. But no, you don't. But I will say, though, to meet in the middle, to be fair, I do believe that there can be a 3-hour version of this movie that is just as good and maybe more enjoyable for some people. I don't know if we necessarily needed a music video of Lois Lane getting a latte.
Yeah.
But no, like, I devoured this movie. I watched it all in one sitting. No problem at all. Like, and it's just like, I don't want to hear the same generation that is able to watch, oh, it's 4 hours long. It's like, this is the same generation that's able to watch an entire season of Stranger Things in one weekend. I don't want to hear it. Like, that's the whole point of a streaming service.
To play devil's advocate, though, I will say with a TV show, you can stop after like an episode or two if you want. Whereas a movie is supposed to be watched in one viewing, so it's enough of a difference to complain about if you really want to be that way, I guess.
Correct. But to this movie's credit, it at least tried to meet in the middle by having chapters, which I thought was a cool touch. And I wish more movies did it, especially when they're longer. Like,
it helps keep it from feeling too long.
Exactly. So you know where you are in the movie. Like, like, okay, we're probably about halfway through. Oh, okay, the big battle's supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was a good you didn't have to keep checking your watch. The movie was trying to make you as relaxed as possible. No, I think that this is a vast improvement, is the superior film. And it's so weird that, like, this is a completely, free Zack Snyder, because it's a much more tender and sensitive film than any of his other movies, surprisingly. His live action movies, at least. I mean, like, you have Cyborg in this movie that was just shredded in the theatrical cut, where this, like, he actually has a character. Like, you understand him. Like, you see he has an arc. In the other movie, he's just like, I'm half robot and that makes me sad. But, like,
well, why? You're half robot. You're half internet. I'm BasilMarceau.com.
But here, he actually has a character. You see him do good deeds for a struggling single mother, and you see his relationship with his mom. And, like, I mean,
you actually see his mom.
You actually see his mom. She's not even in the theatrical cut. And, like, that moment where he's starting to cry and his mom holds his face, like, just once again, Zack Snyder is doing what he does best by creating great moments. And his relationship with his dad, and one thing that I do like here, and you hit the nail on the head, Donnie, a lot of, probably the biggest difference is the way these characters interact with each other. In the Joss Whedon cut, they're assholes to each other for no real reason, and it just felt like Joss Whedon was trying to recreate the first Avengers movie. And the scene where Aquaman is being a dick to Cyborg for no real reason, being like, I think you're working with them, like working with the mother boxes. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, I think you're in cahoots with them. You don't want to find them. Whereas in this version, he's sympathetic to Cyborg. He's like, we're asking a kid who just lost his father to save a world that's barely done him any favors. It's not fair. And the Flash is like, I thought you didn't care. He's like, I never said that. And and then another moment that I cringe at, and it's not even like a funny good cringe, it's just like, why, was when like Batman's all about tough love, but this was so out of character for him, where Diana was like, I don't think we should do it. I think this is wrong. I think we should, be more careful. And he's like, is that what Steve Trevor said? And it's just
Yeah.
like, what is this all about? But in this version, you have these people that, feel unsure, they feel uncertain, and they try to make the most of it. It's not like, oh yeah, like what if we have them butt heads? Like, no, what if like we have a group of people that are, among other things, above all else, just happy to have some people that they have a little bit in common with, they can maybe be friends with. And I know that sounds a little Sesame Street, but I think Zack Snyder made that work. So
Zack Snyder's Sesame Street.
yeah.
I would love to
So,
watch that.
for the sake of me not babbling on too much, Sean, you have the floor.
I'm gonna need the whole roof soon. So I have now watched the Snyder Cut twice. I have not watched Justice is Great yet. I was waiting to watch that one, but I've now happily sat through the Snyder Cut twice. So I've sat through 8 hours worth of content, and I've loved it both times. Again, it was, as you've already said, both of you have already said, this was a far superior movie to what we got in 2017. And the audacity, I say the audacity of Warner Brothers to be hiding this film, basically saying, this isn't good enough for the public. Or even like, Blake, we've had discussions where like we've heard like early test screenings of this movie, like it was treated horribly, that nobody liked it. It was just like, it was unwatchable. I'm like, what was unwatchable about this? It continues to, again, reigniting the theme of my DC rant. Like, what exactly was so unwatchable about this movie? It baffles my mind that Warner Brothers was keeping this under wraps, just like trying to say that this thing didn't fucking exist, and it makes me angry. I could go on a whole tangent about like where we are right now with Restore the Snyderverse, blah 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 blah, and it really just irks me to no end. I do have some obvious criticisms, as we've already mentioned as well, like that this movie is not perfect. I can definitely sit there and say that I got a little annoyed with the whole Wonder Woman chorus thing. Every time she came on screen, she'd be like, oh, okay, I didn't need that every fucking time she came on. I could at least recognize that. I know, like, for anybody on here who's probably just thinking, oh man, he's just like beating his dick to Zack Snyder. I get it. I want to reiterate, I've never seen any of these other Zack Snyder movies. I've never seen the Owls of Ga'Hoole. Just
literally, Diana walks on screen and she could be eating a bowl of cereal,
Yeah.
and you would almost hear Freddie Mercury start to sing the Flash Gordon theme song.
Yeah. Like, I didn't need that. If you wanted it a few times, fucking fine. I had no problem with it. But again, that's just the way Zach directs. He wants to do it that way, fucking fine. I'm not going to rip his movie to shreds and give it a fucking 1 out of 5 because I was annoyed by that every so often. I also, like, there were a couple, as you said, Blake, the Lois Lane getting a latte. Like, there was like a couple of minutes that could have just been shredded.
Yeah,
from
the only thing that scene was missing was a song by Evanescence.
Wake me up inside.
No, honestly, I was expecting some from Train.
Chasing cars.
No, but like, and then I'm sorry, and just to hit pause on you, Sean, but to come in with a timeout was another moment. It's become a meme as the horniest woman in the entire world who sings that Icelandic song about Aquaman and then
I was just about
sweater. Go ahead.
Like, no, you're right, Blake. That was my next thing I was going to say. Just like, why did that need to be in there? I can recognize that there are things that you could have literally, quote unquote, trimmed the fat of this movie and probably gotten a 3.5 hour movie. People are complaining about the slow mo, saying like, people are still like, bashing this, but obviously the consensus is that this movie is far superior, and obviously people want more of it. But yes, I can at least recognize you could have trimmed the fat here and there, and you probably could have ended up with a 3.5 hour movie, and it still would have been just as good. I don't feel like the extra half hour made or broke this movie. Like, oh man, if this was 3.5 hours, this would have been the most perfect movie ever. No, it's not like that. More or less, I just had to sit and watch it 30 extra minutes of footage, and that's fine. It didn't make or break the movie for me. Continuing on to what you were saying about, Cyborg, Blake, I feel like he was done very dirty, with Warner Brothers, and, even in the Justice League. I didn't give a shit about it. I gave no fucks whatsoever about his character, about whatever happened to him. I was there pretty much to see Batman, and like, he was fucking ripped to shreds in that movie too.
Oh, yep, something
But
bleeding.
oh yeah, something. Tell me something. Do you bleed? Like, what the fuck is that shit? God damn it. Anyway, God, yeah, I'm getting all fired up, guys. This is like, so late at night here. I'm just like, going like screaming throughout my house about like, fucking Zack Snyder. People are gonna call the cops.
He's overstimulated. He's not going to sleep tonight.
Yeah, seriously, but yes, Ray Fisher was done dirty. It's a travesty that they cut so much of his necessary character stuff within his movie. People are saying that could have been saved for a Cyborg solo film and all that other stuff. It's just like, I still feel like, and I feel like no one's even really touched on this as of yet, but it's my understanding that Zack Snyder's cinematic universe, was supposed to be a 5-film arc. Is that correct, Blake?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's supposed to be a 5-film arc. Whether you like it or not, that's the way it was supposed to be. I'm totally cool, and Blake, you and I have had this discussion as well. I'm totally cool and content with the idea of having 5 films in this type of arc, and then having spin-offs from here and there, building the cinematic universe. I don't need to watch 30 goddamn movies like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and have to watch every single one of them, because there's like, oh, there's an Easter egg in that one that's going to connect to Ant-Man and the Wasp, that's going to connect to Infinity War whenever XYZ happens.
Yeah. And I think that was very unfair. I feel like that was a lose-lose, because people critique DC for not doing that. Like, oh, they didn't have the Aquaman movie first and then the Flash movie and then do the Justice League movie. But I feel like if DC had done that, then people would have been like, oh, wow, DC's copying Marvel. Like, I feel like it was just a lose-lose scenario.
Like I said, I think the 5-film arc is working for me, and I believe, and maybe we'll talk about this after we're done with this. I'm a firm believer now that with all the positive reception that this movie has received, that we will get a completion of this 5-film saga. I'm gonna, as you said, Blake, keep the faith. I'm gonna keep on hoping for #restore the Snyderverse, but we could talk about that in a little bit. But continuing on with the Snyder cut, I would, once again, I would rank this movie probably it's very close. I would definitely say I think I'd rank it higher than BVS, purely because it really did hold up all of the expectations I had for this movie, just based on what I saw in 2017 and all the hype it was building. There was so much hype around it, and honestly, like, I didn't feel burned in this respect. I felt I got exactly what I wanted. I felt it, it definitely made Batman much cooler than he was in 2017. I will say that I thought that the Flash was handled, I guess, pretty okay in this the original 2017 movie. I just felt he was even better in this movie as well. There was one scene in particular between Cyborg and the Flash where they're digging up the grave.
You think she would go for a younger man?
Dude, that actually made me roll. I was laughing so
She's
hard.
5,000 years old. Every man is a younger man.
And I feel
funny.
I feel like we were finally introduced to what Zack Snyder's sense of humor actually is that he likes smaller, not maybe subtle, but smaller jokes instead of like in your face quips.
Conversational.
Yeah.
Right. Like he doesn't go, he's, as Trevor said, no, the Flash in this movie, he's actually funny. He's not Joss Whedon funny, where he's just like, what's brunch? And it's just like, what? But no, I love that moment. It's like, yeah, think she'd ever go for a younger guy? He's 5,000 years old, Barry. Every guy's a younger guy.
Yeah. I thought that was funny. I thought that was a good addition. I guess if I'm talking about anything else, I don't know how we haven't discussed this yet. Steppenwolf in 2017, he looked like a PS2 game, like a PS2 game graphic. Like what the fuck? Like how did they even push that out the door and be like, yeah, that's it right there.
He looked like he was going to try to kill Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah, seriously, man. It's just like fucking Christ. It made me so angry. Like, in hindsight now having this, I guess you could say I'm spoiled because like, oh no, whatever. Like this wasn't even ready back in 2017. Like, fuck off. No, it's just like Steppenwolf looks so much more scary and also more badass as it is. Just like in respect to what we even got to begin with. And if we're moving on now to even more of the main villain, as Donnie mentioned about Darkseid, I think Ray Porter's Darkseid is fucking menacing. Honestly, and again, I'm throwing out more like DC fanboy um, stuff right here, but he honestly gives Thanos a run for his money. I'm more intimidated by fucking Darkseid than I am of Thanos, because at the end of the day, I can at least understand Thanos, like his point, in Infinity War and Endgame, where he was just like, he had a reason, he had a purpose for what he was doing. I don't know what the fuck is that Darkseid's doing. He's just a bad guy, and honestly, that's fine. That's fine.
We've kind of reached a point where we try to make every villain almost misunderstood or tragic, and it was oddly refreshing to have a villain once again who is just evil for the sake of being evil. Like, it's okay to still do that.
Exactly. And that's kind of where I am. And I hope and I pray that this is continued in some fashion. Honestly, no, let me rephrase that. People are talking like they'd want this to be animated if that's how they continue it. No, fuck that. I don't want this animated. I want this to be all the same actors. I want everyone back. I want this to be complete 5-film arc, and then you'll never hear from me again about this. I want this over and done with. And the thing is, people are clamoring for more, and it's just Warner Brothers is just like closing the door on it. Just being, I don't know. If we talk about it later, we'll talk about it later. But moral of the story, bottom line from my entire rant about what I'm talking about, the Snyder Cut, I thought it was fantastic. So much better than 2017. I will try not to watch 2017 going forward because I've now seen the light, as we've joked about. This is so much more superior. I love it. I think it was just so much better. And that's all that really needs to be said about it. Oh, wait, actually, I guess if we're talking about additional changes, I want more of the nightmare sequence. I want more of that. I was totally even cool with the Jared Leto edition, like last minute, if you will, just so we can get a scene with the DCEU Batman and the DCU Joker.
He was at least better than he was in Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that, brings up the whole other point of the Ayer cut and all that other stuff. But like, I don't know. Regardless, we're getting off topic in that respect. But
we can stop with the Ayer cut because nothing's gonna make that movie good.
I'm honestly curious. They'll have my viewings if they decide to release it, because at this point it's more content to watch, and that's what I'm clamoring for. I'm totally cool with it. If they want to release it, I'm tired of the studio interference. Let the fucking directors do what they want to do. If you don't want them to do it afterwards, yeah, I guess. But yeah. So I thought, I like the way that this is heading. I like what Zack Snyder's doing, and I hope he gets a chance to complete his vision at this point. All I'm asking for is 2 more movies to complete his saga, and then that's going to turn into, after the end of his last movie, all I'm asking for is 7 more movies and 7 more spinoffs. And then after that, I'll be like, Warner Brothers, all I'm asking for is a complete rebranding and just like giving Zack Snyder full creative control of the DCEU. That's all I want. I'm not asking for, but all jokes aside, I really
Sean has literally become a real life unfolding of when you give a mouse a cookie.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. No, at this point, though,
and that's how we got the Rise of Skywalker.
that's a different episode.
I'll say that there's there are some respectable differences between what happened with that and what happened with this. But
Yeah.
I mean, two things I want to say before we finally give the floor to you, Donnie, is another moment I liked was when they were getting ready to go into the military base. And it's just a little moment, but when the Flash is like, "Hey Arthur, which hat should I wear? Here's A."
Yeah.
Definitely not A. All right, here's B.
Let me see A
Let me,
again.
let me see A again. Like I don't know. It's just like it's just little stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then also to play devil's advocate in defense of the runtime, because I know I was just like, oh, I think, once again, I was completely fine with the 4 hours, but I am willing to see how, there can be a 3 hour version of this movie that more people would probably like more. I don't know. But in defense of the 4 hours, I feel like after all the petitioning and rallying and all the fighting amongst, the fans for this vision to be released, I feel like they were just like, just give us everything you got. And so finally Zack Snyder was like,
All
okay,
right.
here's everything I got. here's Lois Lane getting foam art on her latte. Like, all right, here it is. So that's my defense of it. It's just like, since we had to fight for this for over 3 years, just show us everything you had. And it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, that's a fine defense. So Donnie, I have no idea. I mean, I guess you kind of hinted at it, but I have little idea of what you thought of this movie until now. Go ahead.
So this movie is vastly superior to the theatrical cut, and it's much more organized. And a big reason for that is because this movie gave the DCU exactly what it needed. Because the problem with the theatrical cut of the Justice League, like I said before with Batman versus Superman, is how it just jumps into this universe with no build at all. It's just like, hey, there's all these metahumans all over the place and blah blah blah. Just deal with it, nerds. Um, so you jump into the theatrical cut of the Justice League, and it's just like you watch it and you're just like, this universe either needed an extra movie between Batman versus Superman and the Justice League, or the Justice League just needed to be like way longer to give more elbow room.
Hmm.
So this movie being 4 hours long, absolutely justified because that's exactly what it needed. Is it needed more room to breathe and build, um, and it's just so much more organized. Like the opening scene, or at least one of the first scenes of the theatrical cut, is Batman fighting the aliens like that are already on Earth before Steppenwolf even like comes into play. Like that makes no fucking sense for his army to be here before he's here. Um,
Yeah.
so like that, have them not show up until he shows up makes a lot more sense. Having Darkseid in the movie really helps Steppenwolf like actually not be more interesting, but I guess like it's not as dull because there's like an actual plan, a goal going on. Like he's not just wiping out planets for the sake of it. He's trying to find the anti-life equation.
Mm-hmm.
He's got an
Hmm.
actual goal in mind, and I'm like, okay, this is good. Um, this movie made me fucking care about Cyborg. I have
Yeah.
never fucking cared about Cyborg. When they announced that this movie was going to have Cyborg in it, I was like, fucking why? I like can't we? I would much rather have the Green Lantern, specifically the John Stewart Green Lantern. Um, and I mean, part of that's just because I'm a Green Lantern fan. But I'm like, I don't fucking care about Cyborg. I didn't even care about Cyborg during that Teen Titans cartoon back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but this movie fucking made me care about Cyborg. After the Zack Snyder cut, I was like, yeah, my man. I mean, it's almost disgusting when you watch this movie and you just see how much they cut out of Cyborg's story. It's just like,
Hmm.
did you guys even want him to be likable? like,
Yeah.
um, and then they gave the Flash some more story too. I will say that scene when we first meet the Flash in this cut, and like when he saves that girl from that car wreck, that is taken. That's like almost a copy paste out of a Quicksilver scene in one of the Fox X-Men movies. Um, it's also kind of creepy too, the way he like caresses her as he's putting her down and everything. It's like, yo, man, you just like met her like 2 seconds ago. Um, but I mean, all the characters are given. All the characters act more true to how they actually should be. They're given more room to breathe. Um, Darkseid being in the movie just it makes the movie a lot more interesting. Um, I will say though, as far as what I don't like about the movie, I mean, I still don't like that the mother boxes are a thing mainly because they made them too much like the Infinity Stones. Um, I also just like the scene when it shows the flashback to when they fight Steppenwolf the first time he came to Earth, or in this cut it was Darkseid instead of Steppenwolf. And it's like, we had an army of Amazons, Atlanteans, and men. And I'm just like, this is literally Lord of the Rings. Like, um, but my problem with like the theatrical cut was, she was like, and we also had aliens from the sky, and it's like, okay, first off, the fact that the Green Lanterns are only a fucking cameo in this movie is a fucking crime. And second, I was always like, why didn't they give one of the fucking mother boxes to the Green Lanterns? They could have scattered that shit across the galaxy like the fucking Dragon Balls. It just didn't make sense to me. You give it to you got like four different groups in this army, and then you give one of the boxes to men who are clearly like ranked fourth place out of the four. Like 5,000 years ago is when this fight took place. They probably just figured out irrigation, and you're going to give them a sentient computer. Okay, cool. So the Snyder Cut kind of answers that question by only having one Green Lantern, and he dies during the battle. But then they also replace it with another question because Ares and Zeus are in the fight. It's like, why didn't you give the fucking box to them? They're actual gods. Um, so it's just, I personally would have preferred a different villain entirely. Especially because another problem I have is like, because they mentioned that Darkseid went to Earth the first time because he knew the anti-life equation was there and he forgot where it was. It's like, how the fuck did he just forget where it was? It was the only planet that ever beat him. I would fucking remember something like that.
Yeah.
Like that.
It's just, I mean, the only defense I've heard is like, it's just like, Earth became just another tree in an endless forest for him, I guess.
But
I
it was
don't
the
know.
only one that beat him.
I, you got me.
Yeah. But again, I like that he actually has a goal. He's looking for the anti-life equation. I like that, he's actually like trying to enslave people as opposed to just, I'm just gonna burn the place because. Like, it is refreshing to have a villain who's evil just for being evil, but at the same time, when you go too far with it where it's just like, I'm just burning stuff. Why? I don't know.
It's like, bro, that's just who the Joker is.
Yeah. And I also don't like how, at the end when the boxes unify and blows everything up and the Flash goes back in time and fixes everything. I don't like that. I know it's a thing the Flash can do. I know it's foreshadowed when he's like, I try not to break this rule because time gets weird when I reach the speed of light, but it still feels so Deus Ex Machina to me to do that. And it's again, I just would have preferred I would have preferred Brainiac personally. I feel like that would have been a great first villain for the first Justice League movie. Have Lex Luthor steal a mother box and use that to make Brainiac. I think that would have been awesome. But I think what we got is really good, even still. It is a much better movie than the theatrical cut on many fronts. I love that Lois Lane actually is in the movie more. Like, even though, yeah, that whole scene with the latte was just kind of like it's a bit much. I like that she has more of a presence in the movie because in the theatrical cut, like other than that, like she just has that little scene with Clark's mom, and then she's just randomly thrown in during the fight when right after Superman's revived, just like just thrust in there, shoehorned in there, and it's just I like that she's actually around more and she has more of a presence in this movie.
Mhm.
So it is a much better movie. It's a much more coherent movie. It's a much more organized movie. That being said, it is not movie of the year. It's a good movie. It's not a fantastic movie. I feel like it is overhyped a little bit because one comparison to the theatrical cut, like it just blows that movie out of the water, and two, the story behind its production. I mean, it is a very feel good story that like an artist who got cheated, one by circumstance and two by a studio who took advantage of said circumstance, finally gets to release his vision. I mean, that's a good story no matter who it is. And it is awesome whether you love him or hate him. It's awesome that he did finally get to make his movie. Um,
Yeah.
it's a good movie. It's not movie of the year, but I would still. I mean, I would watch it again. Um, if the occasion ever arose.
Hmm.
I mean, it made me care about Cyborg. I love the Flash in it. Um, I mean, it's just a cool movie all around. It's just a cool movie all around. If I had to rank the movies that we discussed here tonight from best to worst, this one is definitely the best, followed by Man of Steel, followed by Justice League with Batman versus Superman at the bottom. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, you're saying keep the faith that Zach's going to get to make the rest of his arc. I'm here to inject a little atheism into you because that ain't going to happen, bud. Um, I mean, do I think they should just let him do it? Yeah, it's only two fucking movies. At this point, you might as well because it's like everything else you've tried so far is fucking
Yeah,
floundering. Like,
seriously.
Warner Brothers' strategy is literally just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the answer to that is nothing. Like at this point, what have you got to lose? I mean, he's shown that like because Man of Steel is a good movie. Batman versus Superman is a movie that gets shit on more than it deserves, but it is still a flawed movie. And then his version of the Justice League is an awesome movie. But so it's like at this point, what do you have to lose? Just let him make two more movies.
I
Yeah.
say meet in the middle and just let them wrap it up with one more movie. Just be like, okay, you can make another 4 hour movie or maybe even 5 hours long, but like just wrap it up with one more movie. I say meet in the middle there, but
Yeah, and I mean,
don't.
if we start looking at the rest of the DCEU, I mean, I would rather spend 4 hours watching this again than spend another 2 minutes watching the fucking Suicide Squad again. I fucking hate I fucking hate that movie. If they release an Ayer cut, I will not watch it because I don't fucking care because nothing can make that movie good. It's a piece of shit, and anybody who thinks otherwise is fucking wrong. Um, Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, that's a cool movie. That one gets the pass. Wonder Woman, good movie, super formulaic. I haven't watched Shazam yet, unfortunately. So I mean, like
That's
at this
good.
Aquaman, I haven't watched that either, and I don't really want to if I can avoid it because it just looks fucking stupid. So it's like at this point, what have you got to lose by letting them finish his arc? Like
To
you got amazing reviews, let
It's
them fucking
true.
do it.
well, this is the only Snyder DC movie that's fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Like
Yeah.
so so you finally get a fresh movie and then you're like, never mind.
Yeah.
And
Nah.
I mean,
that's
like,
Alright, I'm gonna
something.
head
fuck.
out.
DC's been talking about the fucking Rock being Black Adam for how many years now? Like, when the fuck are we gonna get that movie, guys?
Yeah.
Next year, I guess.
Yeah,
But
I'll believe it when I fucking see it. They announced that movie in what, 2013,
2008.
2008?
What?
Yeah, they announced it like 2008 or 9.
They announced The Rock as
Jeez.
Black Adam in 2008.
That's at least when they were actually sitting down with him. It may not have been publicly announced, but no, like The Rock was having meetings with Warner Brothers and DC Comics in like the late 2000s.
Jesus Christ, guys! I know he's The Rock, but he's not that fucking busy. What the fuck? It's taking so long.
Did they need him to get like really, really big for this role?
Well,
Did he need that many years?
I guess you could say it took a lot to move him.
Oh,
No.
Kal-El, shut the fuck up.
But
Kal-El, no.
but but Donnie, to your point of, injecting the atheism and Sean with that ain't gonna happen, we have to remember 3 years ago people would have been saying the Snyder cut was never gonna happen.
I mean,
Like
I knew this was gonna happen because I'm like, eventually it's gonna have to. Like, I mean,
I don't know about that. There was a lot of like I because here's the thing. It took us over 20 years to get the Richard Donner cut. And I
the
mean,
difference is the Richard Donner cut is technically an unfinished movie, like because he never got to finish it. Whereas Zack Snyder got to film his movie, he just had to go back and like because I think he only filmed like what maybe 10 extra minutes for this.
he
Like
just did everything with Nightmare and then the Martian Manhunter.
yeah, so he didn't have to film a whole lot extra, which the Martian Manhunter was really cool in this movie also. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, so he did like this was pretty much a completed movie. It's just he didn't get to like actually put the pieces together. And when he
Yeah.
left, when he left, that's when Warner Brothers was like, "Hey, Joss Whedon, just make a completely different movie."
which it seemed looking back like the Justice League cut just seems so spiteful almost.
Yeah, Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
all the stuff they do instead, like Kal-El No is different in this version even. And
But, like,
another moment
why?
is like when Cyborg catches Aquaman in the Joss Whedon version, he's like, "Ride ain't over yet," and he's like, "My man." But like
Yeah.
in this version, it's more subtle. He's like, "You're welcome." He's like, "My man." It's just like, why would you change that? Like,
There
why? What
there
is the
is
reason?
there is one scene in the Joss Whedon cut that I wish was in the Zack Snyder cut, and it's the scene when Bruce is on I guess he's on his airplane or whatever, talking with Diana, and he says that like Clark was more human than I was, and he lived, he loved, he had a job, a family, a girlfriend. Like I love that scene. That was like that's probably the one scene from the Joss Whedon cut that I wish was in the Zack Snyder cut.
I can get behind that. Yeah. And yeah, it's just like I remember watching this, and halfway through, my wife was like, "I just can't get over." And like I know this isn't like an amazing take on it, or this isn't like a brand new take on it. This is what we've basically been saying. But for her, for having a casual point of view on it all, halfway through, she was like, "I just can't get over how this guy made an entire movie twice as long as most other movies, and the studio just told him never mind."
Yep.
Like she
Yeah.
couldn't get over that. Like this guy made an entire movie, enough to make two movies even, and they were just like, nah.
I
But
also like how because in the Justice League, the mother boxes just wake up just because, but
yeah,
in this version, it's implied they wake up because they were scared of Superman.
Ding Dong, the God is
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah, which
Um,
Yep.
which is good, and I also it's kind of a plot hole because I'm just kind of like, well, then how come they didn't wake up before he ever landed on Earth?
huh.
Yeah,
Hmm,
think about
huh, huh.
We're just gonna
Wow.
ignore that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just gonna ignore that. But it's
it.
it's
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 a good. That's a
surprising.
good point, though. It's a fair
It,
point.
it has a good point, but like
It
it,
just
it
it just comes back to how they, again, it doesn't have to be a one for one, shot for shot recreation of comic books, but you guys made the mother boxes too much like the Infinity Stones. Like
well, they almost
several years after the Avengers came out, you shouldn't have done that, guys.
Well, also they almost try to ditch the mother boxes for the anti-life equation. They're like, "Oh, we have a cooler plot device."
Yeah.
But it's surprising hearing you say that you didn't care for the Flash time travel sequence, Donnie, because that's one of the scenes that a lot of people are praising. Even
Yep.
I mean,
I
it's
agree.
pretty. I just don't. It's too. It comes off as too Deus Ex Machina for me. It's just like,
I love, I do love the dialogue though. I love the dad. I just want you to
Yes.
know your kid was one of them, one of the best. Like
yeah,
I love
It's like
that.
a Pa Kent scene for me.
Yeah. Oh, and I mean, let's talk about Superman's return. Like, I love the extra dialogue that they had Russell Crowe and Kevin Costner
yeah.
record. In the very last, we loved you so much. We're so proud of you. And then finally, Fly, son, it's time. Like, they, it was, it's definitely better than 2017's. I like Truth, but I'm also a big fan of Justice. Like,
Oh,
Donnie,
Kal-El,
for me,
shut the fuck up.
for
Kal-El,
me,
no.
for me, that is the "oh, just gag me" moment. But I do love him landing to save Cyborg and being like, not impressed.
And then
And then was
that
also
scene when that final scene when he like heat visions Steppenwolf's antler off and fucking
Yeah.
Wonder Woman cuts his head off. I'm like, okay, now it's Zack Snyder's Justice League.
yeah, and they had to do that. They had to do the Amazon Orchestra one last time.
Yep, one last ride.
But
Oh man.
yeah, so it's definitely uplifting to see, kind of ironic how my first critique, my original critique that I eventually, loosened the reins on, lightened up on, and backpedaled on. My first critique was that this wasn't inspirational and uplifting enough. But then it kind of ended with, well, hopefully not ended, but still, it played out to a true life story that had a more uplifting and inspirational ending. Like you said, Donnie, that like an artist got to fulfill his vision and make what he wanted to make. And we kind of got to see the auteur theory tested here. that, the director is the primary personality behind a film, not the producer, not the screenwriter, which it's amazing how Chris Terrio, I think that's how you
Yeah.
pronounce it, the screenwriter of this movie, he also did Batman versus Superman, but it's amazing how the screenwriter of this movie did The Rise of Skywalker. I'm just going to pretend that he was drowned out by J.J. Abrams because last year,
Yikes.
well, the year before last year, I guess, we went from you're a Palpatine and and I am all the Jedi, just like
Yeah.
go
Ugh.
away. So we see that,
Never before have I left a movie feeling like my intelligence was insulted.
but we go from somehow Palpatine returned to I don't care how many demons he's fought in how many hells. He's never fought us. Not us united. Like, I'm sorry, that's so cheesy. It's beautiful. I love that. Like, that is the fun you can have with these movies. Like, superhero movies can walk a fine line between being motivational and being cheesy. And I think that walks that line very well. But yeah, I mean, I say meet in the middle. Let them do one more movie. But I I do, and I've talked about this with Trevor. I do fear that maybe he should have just left well enough alone and maybe filmed this to be not as open ended as he did and just leave it at more like I don't know if I would have done the scene where Bruce Wayne meets the Martian Manhunter. I would have maybe just had, I think of a nice contrast of him having that nightmare sequence again would have been him having one more scene where he gets to personally talk with Superman and just kind of them, reconcile their relationship a little bit more and begin to forge their friendship a little bit more. Like, I do fear that maybe Zack Snyder should not have made more hope for a sequel when he maybe should have tried to at least crack the book open to being almost closed. What feelings do we have with that?
I I mean, honestly, I will. That could be another gripe I had with the movie is the fact that I don't feel Martian Manhunter needed to be in this movie. It just kind of seemed really shoehorned into it,
I mean, I liked
personally.
him. I thought he was cool, but like, I feel like he could have been easy to trim or
Yeah,
just
I
not
think
add.
I would have been fine if they kept the Martha and Lois scene where they're talking about like whatever in the Snyder cut, and then they just cut right before they like showed the Martian Manhunter as the general. I would have been fine if, like he wasn't in this movie at all. I don't feel this really added a whole lot to it, my personal opinion. But again, I feel like I'm almost wondering if Zach knows, and obviously we don't know that there is hope now, depending that maybe he was promised, hey, if this does well, we'll give you the rest of these movies. Because honestly, numbers are everything to a studio, right? Are they
No,
going to
it's
sit
not
here?
because if it was, they wouldn't have waited so long to release this movie.
Yeah,
I guess, but then again, we got to look at the hashtag restore the Snyderverse, and that's getting like 1.5 million like tweets about it, and it's like it's getting more than Avengers Endgame. It's like
Sean, atheism.
I've got to say, like if they really don't want to pursue this further, and shame on them. Shame on them. They're losing money. You're going to lose subscribers. Just make it an HBO Max exclusive. I don't care. Just finish it. Just finish the job, and that's it. And then afterwards,
I,
make more.
I do want to critique the critique of people putting down this fandom for being like, that's so spoiled. They're acting like spoiled brats. They're being so demanding. And I'm not going to condone harassment, but I feel
Sure.
like for people to almost act insulted and outraged by the fact that, these fans love this product so much that they're requesting more of it. We live in a very unique time where fans are able to directly communicate to producers, hey, we are potential consumers. If you produce this product, we will consume it. And that's all they're doing. That's all that's all the decent ones, and I feel like the good majority are trying to do. Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. Like, instead of a studio throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks and then checking box office numbers opening weekend, just open your ears and eyes a little bit and see what actual people are willing to communicate to you directly. I feel like there's not a downside there, but maybe that's just me. So I think this was a very good conversation. I thought it was I had a very pleasant time, even if we didn't agree on every single little thing. Just final thoughts though. I may not have loved the first two films we talked about tonight the very first time I saw them in theaters, but I only like them more and more as time goes on. And I want to apologize for maybe being over dramatic back then. But no, I feel like it's like what you said, Sean. Why have two completely separate cinematic universes that act exactly the same? Why not have
Exactly.
them be different? Why not mix it up? So, any final thoughts for the evening, gentlemen?
Donnie, you can go first.
No, I got nothing.
All right.
Oh.
Okay. Sean?
Hashtag restore the Snyderverse. There we go. That's all I gotta say.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for listening in tonight. So I am BVJ. You can find me online at Puka Saucy. You can follow the Fat Minute at Fat Minute Radio across whatever social website you bother to have. If you missed the live
We're
tonight,
on Parlor now.
Yikes! If you missed us going live tonight, or tuned in late, we will be on Apple and Spotify tomorrow. Donnie, you go ahead.
Yeah, Don John. You can follow me Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Don John Laughs.
Sean?
You guys don't have to follow me. It's all right.
Follow him anyway. He has an OnlyFans.
Yeah, I post once a week.
You won't believe what he does with that cat in the picture.
Oh my God.
He feeds it lasagna.
Well, tomorrow is Monday.
She does not like Mondays.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Fuck you. Goodbye.